Hi, welcome to D10tion, where we pretend to know what we're talking about when it comes to D&D. I am Tristan, put your dukes up. To my left, we have first rule of Fight Club is not talk about Fight Club, Sam. And to my right, we have, please don't hit me, I'm Brandon!
A fighter I am not.
Right, which is what we're talking about, fighters!
Hey!
So Do, re, mi.
It's like there's two of them.
So, I have a question before we get into it. What do fighters do?
They sing.
I'm pretty sure they bake cookies.
That's...
I'm pretty sure they fight.
Oh,
they fight
yeah.
well.
That's right. Fighters. They fight. Yeah, fighters are the kind of character... this is where you'll see what the most common D&D character ever is a human fighter.
Yep. If you look
statistically,
there's actually statistics. If you look up online, you'll see that in the top left-hand corner, the most played, the deepest, darkest color of blue is human fighter.
Right. Now, fighters are the kind of characters that you can hand them any kind of weapon and they'll know what to do with it, whether it's a broadsword or a rapier or a bow and arrow, whatever it is.
Axe.
A fighter knows how to fight. That is pretty much what a fighter is.
They're well acquainted with fighting and death and defending themselves in whatever manner they choose.
Right. They tend to be able to learn the basics of all combat styles. They may choose to specialize in something, but again, put it in their hand, they'll hit you with it. Just hitting them with the bow.
It's a great way to do that. Great way to say that. They are adept with shields and every form of armor. So that leaves a lot of creativity to how you want to do it. If you want to have a shield, you can. If you don't have to. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a fighter with light armor, so you're more dexterous and on your feet, medium armor in the middle of the road, or heavy armor because you're like, I am the tank. And your weapons, your guns are just your two swords just while you walk into things. You can do that. It'd be really hilarious to watch a fighter do that. But you can do it.
Right. This is where, especially background-wise, if you're looking to have a character who comes from a military, a city watch, knights, gladiators,
a
co-op, the Queen's Army. This is usually where a lot of background with fighters come from, most commonly. But of course, everything changes. It could just be simply your character could have started as that, but then they're drawn to adventure because they wanted more out of it, and they were like, you know what? I want to find the best weapons I can be. This is again, it feels very much like the Superman, where it's kind of, I don't want to say cookie cutter like it's a bad thing. It's a fighter. It's what they do.
It's a really good starting class if you don't want to have to deal with the complexity of spells, but if you want to dip your foot into spells, there is something in fighter. There's two things in fighter that kind of let you do that, but we'll kind of touch base on those.
Right. This is a step up as far as a combatant from barbarian.
Barbarian is I'm going to smash, hit. Fighter, depending on what you pick,
they can have a little bit more finesse to them. So in building a fighter, as a quick guide, we talk about, depending on the fighter you want to be, you can choose either strength or dex as your upper. If you're going to be shooting arrows more often, you're not going to be doing it in strength. It'd be in dex.
If you're going to use a finesse weapon, like a rapier or darts or a longsword,
dex is a good option.
You can. Dex is a good option. Or like I said, strength if you just want to bring your giant club down and just whoop at people.
Right. And also raising your constitution is a good option as well to give you more health, so you're a little bit more of a tank character. And as a third option, if you choose to dip your toe in magic as a fighter a little bit later, intelligence is what it would be drawn from.
You're the other. This is one of the other intelligence-based spellcasters.
Right. So, to start us off, Sam, go ahead and tell us about what we're doing today.
So, we are building our fighter, and he is a Goliath because they get a +2 to strength as well as a +1 to constitution.
Exactly what we're looking for.
Strong boy.
He is a big, strong boy, and his name is Khan.
Khan!
So, at first level, as a fighter, you get a sweet 1d10 hit dice per fighter level, which is nice. And then your hit points at first level are 10 plus your constitution modifier. As a fighter, you're going to be one of those characters that has more hit points than the other people in your party.
You should, at least.
Yeah. And hit points at higher level, you're doing 1d10 plus your constitution modifier every level after that. You also get proficiencies. You get all armor and shields,
Mm-hmm.
and all simple weapons and martial weapons.
So that pretty much covers. You're proficient with
All
if you're
weapons.
picking up that player's handbook for the first time and you look at all the items, all the weapons, and like the non-magical stuff, you just go,
That's mine.
I'll have all of it.
Yeah. The trade-off is you're not proficient with any tools.
Who needs tools when I have an axe?
Right. Your saving throws are strength and constitution. Those
Makes
are your
sense.
proficiencies. And then you can choose any 2 skills from acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival.
Well, what are we gonna pick, guys?
Well, let's see. With Khan being Khan, I think we're going to want him to be a little bit more strong.
I was thinking intimidation and athletics.
Works for me.
That sounds perfect to me.
Although,
I mean, especially being a Goliath and he can be upwards to 8 foot tall. It's not going to be anything more terrifying than a intimidating Goliath just bending down and like, ball, and you're like, oh god, no!
He's terrifying.
You also get to choose a fighting style.
Which there are a few.
Right, now we've talked about fighting styles in Bards.
And
With
we talked about it in in Paladins.
Yes.
Druids,
Rangers.
Rangers.
Fighting style. So
some of these options might sound familiar if you've listened to us in the past.
but if you're picking this up because you want to learn how to play a fighter, we'll go into it real quick.
Right, so Sam, what's the first one?
Archery, which is a +2 bonus to attack rolls made with range weapons.
We don't need that.
No. You got defense. When you're wearing armor, you gain a +1 to your AC.
So if you're wearing heavy armor, you have more AC,
Right.
so it's even harder to hit. Dueling, when you're wielding a melee weapon in one hand and nothing else no other weapons in the other, you get a +2 to damage rolls with that weapon.
Sam?
Great weapon fighting. When you roll a 1 or a 2 on damage die for an attack with a melee weapon that you are wielding with 2 hands, you can re-roll the die, must use the new roll, even if the new roll is a 1 or a 2. And it must have the two-handed or versatile property. So something like a great sword or a long sword.
Right.
It needs to have the ability for you to go kunk, kunk.
Battle axe.
Yeah. Protection. When a creature you can see attacks a target other than you that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to oppose disadvantage on that attack roll.
So
you must be wearing a shield, though.
You kind of like take your shield and you go, hey!
And they're like, no, don't do that.
And so it's giving you're the enemy a chance to hit the shield rather than your friend. And then you also have 2 weapon fighting. When you engage in 2 weapon fighting, you can add your ability modifier to the second attack. So if you have 2 short swords, your modifier go on the first one normally, but with this, it goes on the second one as well.
So I'm kind of leaning towards great weapon fighting.
Let's go big!
Yep.
Smash!
Get him a big boy weapon. He's a big
Right.
boy.
He's essentially gonna feel a lot like a barbarian, right?
To start off, he's feeling like a barbarian with a little more versatility.
Yeah. And
Right.
now, since you're a fighter and you're probably going to be on the front lines, this next thing that you get at first level is pretty nice, and that's a second wind, which is sort of like a limited well of stamina that you can sort of draw from, and on your turn you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level.
Right.
Which is great.
So that's once per long or short rest.
So you can literally be like, well, I'm feeling pretty low, but no, I'm fine now.
Right. I mean,
Hey.
especially with Khan being a level 5, that means a minimum of 6 extra points. And that can be the meaning between death and life.
Right.
So then
So,
let's bump to second level,
you're right. So, second level, we get Action Surge.
which is an amazing feature.
Right. You can push yourself beyond your normal limits for movement. On your turn, you can take 1 additional action. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before you use it again. Starting at 17th level, you can use it twice before a rest, but only once
And I just want to put a little asterisk on that. It says 1 additional action, not 1 additional attack, which
That's important for
Is
later
important.
on.
Right.
So let's say at this level you want to hit somebody, but you also want to use an action to push a boulder. Like you're fighting on top of a cliff, but like there's someone below you want to crush. You can go whap. But action turn.
yeah.
All right. So now we're going to get into the
The martial archetype.
right. This is the meaty bit of a fighter.
This is where you hone your skills and do a specific set.
Right. Now, there's quite a bit of them right now. We're going to first off only talk about really the official ones. There are plenty of other ones that are being play tested as well as
Made by popular other YouTubers. Well, technically popular other players.
other players and stuff. Especially if you use something like D&D Beyond, you'll see these much more often. But we're really going to stick with player's handbook kind of
whatever
stuff.
official content that's been released. in book form. So starting off, we get one that we're definitely not picking, but we can talk about it real quick, is the Arcane Archer. This is one of the ones that kind of gives you, not really spellcasting, but a sense of magic within your fighter. So you get technically a spell. You get a cantrip from this. You can pick between two. The most important thing about the Arcane Archer is you get what's called Arcane Shot. So you have different spice you can add to your arrows when you shoot them. You can only do so many as you have pretty much arcane shots. So you only get so many per the different levels. You get more choices for your shots at 7th, or technically at 3rd, 7th, 10th, 15th, 18th. So there are a lot of options that range from banishing somebody to the Feywild to piercing through people.
Right, and then also with now with a lot of these, we're going to be kind of flying through a couple of these. Again, this is much more to give you guys an idea of what each of these archetypes are, so that if you have an interest in it, you can delve more into it yourself. We want to encourage you guys to look into these things yourself, because the more you look into it, the more likely you are to...
You'll take inspiration from reading it, or pick whatever it feels like. Reading it, we can talk about it, but reading it can give you a sense of inspiration from something that...
As well as just even playing it yourself. Yeah. So to continue with the arrows at 7th level, as well as getting more of that, you also get a magic arrow where you can fire a non-magical arrow from a short bow or longbow, and you can make it magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance or immunity.
Like amongst magical fists. You get a magical arrow, which is really good because magical bows and magical arrows are kind of rare.
Right.
You can also curve the shot.
And that's also at 7th level, where you, again, curve the shot.
Yep. You also at level 15, no matter what, even if you've used all your arcane shots, you get one more at the start of every combat, for sure. We're not going to go into the options because, by gosh, there's a lot of them. So that's Arcane Archer, which definitely we're not picking. But if you want to be that fighter that has the ability to use weapons, but you want to be at a distance to maximize your chance of survival and not crowd the battlefield, Arcane Archer is really good. You should probably take the archery fighting style.
Right.
Just as a friendly suggestion.
Right. This is where as far as rangers go, this is much more like the fighting ranger similar kind of things.
Now, Arcane Archer is one of the more simple ones. That's why we went more in depth in that one, but it's one of the more simple archetypes. The next one is not so simple.
Right. Battle Masters is where you employ a lot of martial techniques passed through generations, or combat as an academic field. You get a lot of stuff here, like with combat superiority. This is where at 3rd level you learn maneuvers that are fueled by a special dice called
superiority dice.
Right. It's a lot like the Bardic dice where you have dice.
D8.
Right. Where you get to do stuff.
So you get to pretty much do different cool tricks and maneuvers where you can roll to either act on somebody or they have to save from it. This one gives you an actual tool proficiency. So at 3rd level you get Student of War, which is you gain proficiency in one type of artisan tools, which is interesting. Yeah. I think it comes more from the sense of knowledge and battling, but there's also an art form to it.
Yeah.
So you just you're just well rounded.
Right. So yeah, as far as maneuvers go, there are a lot of them.
6.
We're talking 20 different type of maneuvers.
Yeah.
You can literally, if you take Battle Master, print them off.
Right.
Have them on a little sheet of paper next to you so you can go that. So you know what you're doing. So you can plan ahead.
Because this is really where you're trying to get where you talk about how you fight in D&D. It was how do you want to do that as far as killing an enemy, or when they're okay, you attack, your attack hits. Cool. I bring my axe around and do this. This is much more like it, lunging attacks, rallying, trip attacks, and stuff like that, where there are actually specific results. But again, there's a lot of them, so we're going to kind of skip over that. If you're looking for a character, again, they're called Battle Masters for a reason. They know how to battle. They're much more adept to specific motion. So definitely look more into that if you are thinking about martial specifics.
Yeah. Then level 7, you get to know your enemy if you spend a minute observing and interacting. You can learn certain information. It's up to the DM to tell you if they are equal superior, or lesser, and it has to do with if they have classes, hit points, armor class, strength, dex, con, things like that. There's a list for it. You just say, I want to know if their strength and constitution are better or worse than mine. And the DM can go, they're much better. And you go, not going to mess with them. Then you get level 10.
You get improved combat superiority, which is where your superiority die turns to D10s. And this is also at level 18, they turn into D12s. At level 15, you get relentless words.
When you roll initiative and you don't have any superiority die left, you gain one.
Now, this is very much like a couple of level 20 things that we've talked about, like bards and monks, where you get something when you're out of it just because you're a higher level. And at level 18, you get improved combat superiority, where it goes to the 18. Yeah.
So then after that, officially goes to the Cavalier.
Right.
Which is basically like, if you want to be on horseback while you fight things... You want to be like the cavalry, like that's your go-to.
Right.
You take a lance.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely what it sounds like. It's a cavalier. I mean, a lot of the archetypes are going to be exactly what it sounds like. As a battle master, you're a master of battle. An arcane archer, you're an arcane archer. With a cavalier, you're a cavalier.
You're born to saddle, as the DM says.
Now, with this, you get third level, because again, this is where it happens. You get bonus proficiencies. You can choose between animal handling, history, insight, performance, or persuasion. Alternatively, you also learn one language of your choice.
And then also at third level you get the Born to the Saddle feature, which is basically where you're just sort of like a master rider. You have advantage on saving throws about falling off your horse. And if you fall off and descend no more than 10 feet, you can land on your feet. And then dismounting or mounting only costs you 5 feet of movement instead of half your speed.
At
level 3, you also get Unwavering Mark.
So these are really long, so we're gonna just give you the cliff notes on it. You can, if you hit somebody, mark them. It pretty much, when you mark them, a creature marked by you has disadvantage on any attack roll that doesn't target you. So pretty much, when you're on horse, you're pretty much going around and be like, I mark you. I'm also going to head over here now. So if you try and hit anyone else, it's harder for you.
Right. At 7th level, you learn Wandering Maneuver. This is where you learn to fend off strikes directed at you, your mount, or any other creatures nearby. If you or your creature you can see within 5 feet is hit by an attack, you can roll a 1d8 as a reaction if you're wielding a melee weapon or a shield. When you roll the die, add that number to your AC to the target's AC against that attack. If the attack hits, the target has resistance against the attacking damage. This is where, again, with a Cavalier, their main goal is to help protect as well.
You also get level 10, Hold the Line!
Hold the line!
So you have a master blocking down your enemies. Creatures provoke an opportunity attack from you when they move 5 feet or more while within your reach. And if you hit a creature, they reduce to 0. So it's pretty much like the Sentinel feat, which is if you get an opportunity attack and they try and run and you hit them, they stop moving. You just get it at level 10 for free, so you don't need to worry about taking that feat.
Right.
And at level 15,
you get Ferocious Charger.
You get Charge. You get the Charge ability, where you can just go and then do extra damage.
And this is whether you're mounted or not.
Yeah, so you killed my horse, you son of a...
You're much more adept to being able to charge at something, pretty much.
Pretty much you knock them prone.
Right.
And then at level 18...
You get Vigilant Defender. Again, Cavalier is much more of the fighter that's, even though it's very much, rider base, it's a defending base. That's really what you're focusing on here. And at level 18, you respond to danger with extraordinary vigilance. In combat, you get to see you get a special reaction that you can take once per every creature's turn, except your turn, of course. You can use the special reaction only to make an opportunity attack and can't use it on the same turn that you take your normal reaction.
So that is Cavalier. Now we go to the bustling champion.
Now, I imagine champion is much more closer to what the stereotype or classic fighter is. I mean, you're a champion. You're someone who models himself. Your rigorous training, physical excellence, and to deal devastating blows.
Yep.
This is in a way kind of like Barbarian Light in some ways.
Well,
As far as official content, this is just your purpose is to hit. This is really focused as far as that goes.
So at 3rd level with champion, you get an improved critical, which means that when you roll it, you score a critical hit on either a 19 or a 20.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
That means
Especially
rather going
at 3rd
from
level.
1 out of 20 chance, you have
2 out of 20.
or
So-
1 out of 10.
Yeah.
So
So
you
which is-
you greatly help yourself there. At 7.
Yeah, what the?
I'm jumping ahead. I'm leaving you all in the dust.
So you get level 7. You get
Remarkable athlete. Again, this is where you can start to add half your proficiency bonus to any strength, dex, or con
which
check.
is rounded up.
Right.
You don't already use your proficiency bonus in. So if you're not proficient in it, this gives you half rounded up.
Right. In addition, when you make a running long jump, the distance you can cover increases by a number of feet equal to your strength modifier. And that can be the difference between making the gap between 2 cliffs and not.
Yep. And then this is one of the ones that give you at level 10 an additional fighting style. As if you weren't satisfied enough with having one battle fighting style mastered,
Right.
you can now have 2.
Right, these are the same ones that we spoke about earlier, like archery, defense, dueling, gritty, or rapid fighting, protection.
So, a good mix for me would be if you wanted to do protection and defense. Those go hand in hand. You have more AC, plus you can use your shield to just
Right, there's definitely a way. It's definitely one of those things where you can mess with them to give you much more of a focus there. At level 15, you get a superior critical.
Which,
Again,
instead of rolling a 19 and a 20, you can roll 18, 19, 20, and get a critical hit.
which
Right.
is insane because there's so many times when a player will roll an 18 and go 18 plus whatever, and you go, oh, you hit, but you could have got a critical if you would have rolled a little better. And now it's like, well, I hit now with an 18, so an 18 automatically hits everything you say.
so again, this is where I guess to say it not now, but this is again continuing the fact that these champions are made to hit.
You're made to take things out.
Yes. At level 18, you get Survivor. This is where you gain the Pinnacle of Resistance in Battle. At the start of each of your turns, you regain a hit point equal to 5 plus your con modifier if you have no more than half of your hit points left. You don't gain this benefit if you have 0.
If you're unconscious or 0, you can't. Or not unconscious. If you're at 0, you obviously can't survive. You're not surviving. You're the opposite of surviving.
Right. So if you're at half health and you're like, oh man, another fight just happened, you'd be like, all right, wait, con mod plus 5. There's a little bit more health.
At level 18, your con should probably be a 20 since.
If you're choosing champion, you should probably be
your strength and con. It depends on how you fight, but for us, if we pick champion, it will be strength and con. So then you'll get a 10 bonus to hit points. You regain 10 hit points every turn if you're below half, which will greatly speed up getting to half.
Right. So, and this is where it veers really far to a different direction.
I'm a fan of.
Yeah,
right.
We know quite a bit about this one because we have one in the party.
We play one, and I've played one in the past, and this is where I made the mistake. Okay, so it's Eldritch Knight. This is essentially a fighter who has magic with them.
They've mastered the study of the arcane and fighting.
Right, because you pick up spellcasting at level 3. And this is where I've made the mistake that I wouldn't want other people to do is, I was like, okay, I'll do an Eldritch Knight so I can start introducing myself to using magic. When I did that, I went straight into using magic more than I started using fighting, because in my head, I was like, okay, I'll use it. I thought I was going to have more health and everything like that to help me in case I got stuck doing something. But this is where you have to remember, magic is the additive versus you're still a fighter. That is the big thing to remember. You're still a fighter with a little bit of spaz of magic.
In this one, your spell list is based in wizard.
Yes.
So you can learn things the wizard learned. You can't learn things that like bard or sorcerer or holy weapons or anything. You learn what wizards learn, which is cool, which is good. You can learn some really cool spells with that, but also you're limited.
Right. I mean, so this is where you get cantrips and level 1 spells. And
spell slots and use intelligence as your modifier. So that's what we said. If you want to cast spells, you're going to want intelligence to be, depending on how you want to play.
Right. So if you're building a fighter and you're like, man, I really want to be a fighter that has some magic to him, really remember that intelligence is something that you're going to have to put into. If you're doing strength, intelligence, and con, I mean that's what you're really looking for as far as an Eldritch Knight.
And you gain spells. I mean, the highest level spell you'll be able to cast though is 4th. That's the highest,
Right, because again, remember that you are a fighter first and foremost, with a little bit of spice.
So you can't learn past 4, so you're like, I want this 5th level spell. You ain't getting it. The coolest thing about the Eldritch Knight,
right, there's this.
by far, is level 3, is the weapon bond.
And thank God it happens at level 3.
Yeah. Ooh, if it didn't happen before level 3, that'd be crazy. So you like Warlock, so tell us about the weapon bond.
So the weapon bond is basically that you can do a ritual or a short or long rest that takes about an hour, and you kind of create like a magical bond between your weapon. Once you've been bonded with your weapon, you can't be disarmed unless you're incapacitated, and if you're on the same plane of existence as your weapon, you can summon it as a bonus action on your turn, and it just teleports right into your hand. You can have up to 2 bonded weapons, but can only summon 1 at a time with your bonus attack. With your bonus action. If you attempt to bond to a third, you have to break a bond with the previous.
Right. I always say this is kind of like if Thor had Mjolnir teleport versus fly to his hand. Right. Because we always see it where Thor is like, Mjolnir.
And this is similar to a Warlock in like the Hexblade pack.
Right. And that's a
pack of the blade, you get you can summon your blade.
Right.
This one, you just get it, and you can have 2.
Right. At level 7, you get War Magic. This is where you can use your action to cast a cantrip. You can make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action. And that's a big deal for a lot of things. There's a lot of things where your spell takes pretty much everything you do.
As a wizard, you can only cast 1 spell.
Right.
As an Eldritch Knight, you can cast a spell and hit, which is great.
Because you're a fighter.
So you're doing, literally, you can go Ray of Frost, speaking from what Liren does, Ray of Frost, stab.
Right.
Which is great.
At 10th level, you get Eldritch Strike, which is basically you can give somebody disadvantage using your magical weapon strike, and that would be on the next saving throw against a spell that you cast before the end of your turn.
And then level 15, you get Arcane Charge. You can teleport up to 30 feet when you use an action surge. You can teleport before or after the additional action. So you're going to go, okay, I hit. I killed them, but you're over there. I don't have any movement left. Hello. I can stab you.
And of course, at level 18, you get Improved War Magic. This is where you can use your action to cast a spell. You make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action.
So this is where it gets a little sick nasty as a magical fighter, because you can cast a level 4 spell and then attack somebody.
Right.
So you can do Fireball at level 4 and then stab someone. So it's like, the group over there, stab.
Right, and again, just to clarify that, War Magic at level 7, it's a cantrip in a weapon attack. With Improved War Magic at 18, it's a full spell and a weapon attack as a bonus action.
Which is great.
Right, because that makes all the difference. Now, this one we're just going to kind of gloss through because it's very, very specific. To the point where it deals with a specific
It gives
place.
a kingdom,
right.
A specific kingdom, which if your DM is okay with you not, or let's say your backstory is you're somehow from this kingdom and you've done all this, this is the epitome of its name.
Right, it is a purple dragon knight.
So the purple dragon is just the name of the knights, but it's the epitome of a knight. You're restricted to being a knight. You have to have the knighthood of Cormier or Cormurian, however you say that. So it's a very specific knighthood, but if your DM allows it, you can just be a knight.
Right, because it's a full-on restriction in its when you're building it. You have to be purple knight are tied to the specific order, and you have to be that knight. It's straight out the gate. It's kind of like with other ones where we've seen where you have to be a dwarf in order to do it.
Like the Battle Rager.
Right.
Yes. So it is specific. I mean, there's things like Rally Cry, Royal Envoy, Inspiring Surge, and
Bulwark.
Right. So we're kind of just glossing over that for right now because unless you talk to your DM, they might not even let you do it. Or if again, it's so specific, you're probably not going to get into it.
It exists in the D&D world like the Cormir exists in the D&D world as a regular thing. Mm-hmm. So if you're playing in a campaign, like a pre-made campaign that exists with the world of Cormir, then it's fine. And that's why I said if your DM allows and doesn't care that you're not from that specific kingdom, you can make it fun and be like, I'm a red knight. Like I'm a red dragon knight.
Right.
So we come from a different kingdom, and we have these knights. So you can do stuff with it.
Right. Like you have like I mentioned, Rally Cry, which is essentially you can do a Rally Cry to give people within 60 feet of you some health equal to your your level. You have Royal Envoy, which is where
gives you proficiency in a skill. You're pretty much the Royal Envoy. You're going to use your Persuasion skill. If you're already proficient, you can gain an animal handling, insight, intimidation, performance.
Inspiring Surge at 10th level, where you can choose creatures within 60 feet of you. This is where you can make melee or a ranged attack with its reaction, provided that it can see or hear you. At 18th level, you can choose 2 allies rather than 1.
Yeah. So you can send this benefit of your Indomitable feature, which we'll get into that as fighter. So that one's a knight. If you think of a knight, and they're all about like being a part of the knights or the group that they're with, and like to war, and like the whole like King Arthur.
Right, but at the same time, you could do something like battle master and get the same kind of effect.
You can do different things with it. It depends on what RP wise. The Dragon Knights can give you a really nice role play because you're technically the envoy of
you're
king.
It's like super lawful, whatever you choose.
Whatever your kingdom's alignment is, that's your alignment.
Right. So we're going to move on to the last one that we're going to talk about
today.
Which
is way out of left field.
Right. Well, we'll say Eldritch Knight was left field, so this was out of right field.
This is out of right field?
So this is a samurai. And it's exactly what it sounds like.
You are a samurai.
You draw from a fighting spirit to overcome enemies. The samurai is really... its resolve is unbreakable.
You get your Bushido, like your warrior spirit is literally what drives you.
Right. It's either the enemies have two options: yield or die fighting.
Exactly. They're gonna die or you're gonna die. That's it.
Right.
There's no running.
So right out the gate, you get bonus proficiencies. You can choose between history, insight, performance, and persuasion. Also, level 3, you get Fighting Spirit, where your intensity in battle can shield you and help make your strike true. As a bonus action, you can turn... on your bonus action on your turn, you can give yourself advantage on weapon attack rolls until the end of the current turn. When you do so, you also gain 5 temporary hit points.
It increases like 10 at 10, 15 at 15.
Right. You can use this feature 3 times, but you regain them all after a long rest.
So, and then you also get, at level 7, you get Elegant Courtier. So, you have extended yourself past the battlefield, and now you're excellent in social situations, which is... that's why I say it's out of right field. It's not really normal for a fighter. I mean, you can be persuasive and charismatic, but when you think of a fighter who's like just eviscerated somebody, you're not thinking of like, oh, you look absolutely ravishing in that. And the person's like, oh.
Again, this is where you really see it's focused on being much like a samurai, where it's the honor, they're trained to be like the very elegant, because when you think of a samurai, you think of the very elegant, the well dressed. When they're outside of their armor, they're very respectful and things like that. And this is to help push that.
You get to use your wisdom modifier, and you get proficiency with wisdom saves.
Right. So you also get Timeless Spirit, which is at 10th level. You roll initiative, and when you roll for initiative and you have no fighting spirit remaining, you regain 1. This is a thing that recurs.
At 10th level, that's really good.
Right.
So a rapid strike, level 15, you learn to trade accuracy for swift strike. So you can, if you take the attack action and you have advantage, you can forego the advantage to make an additional weapon attack, which is good because at this point you have a bunch of extra attacks. So that means I can go, I don't want advantage. I want to hit more. Give me more.
At level 18, you get Strength Before Death. Again, here comes that honor again. It'll be the death of him.
Literally.
Starting at 18th level, your fighting spirit can delay the grasp of death. If you take damage that reduces you to 0 hit points and it doesn't kill you outright, you can use your reaction to delay falling unconscious, and you can immediately take an extra turn, interrupting the current turn.
That's insane.
Like, oh no, I've been hit, but before I go,
like. How would you feel if Cal I was like, I took him out, and that guy goes, you thought, and you're like, I'm gonna attack again, and I go, you don't though.
Right.
Cal would go, oh.
Now, while you have 0 hit points during that extra turn, taking damage causes death saving throws. Failures is normal, and 3 failures can still kill you. When the extra turn ends, though, you do fall unconscious with 0 hit points. But that does mean, for some reason, if you get hit by someone and you take an action to hit someone else, and let's say Hellish Rebuke happens, you could straight up be dead from that.
Yeah, how would Cal feel about like somebody waking up, going like, "I killed you. You didn't." They hit you, and then afterwards they just
Be very strange.
So that is all the different martial archetypes.
Yeah, we are going to pick champion.
Yeah.
So I have already popped those extra 2 ability score points into strength.
Whoop whoop.
Because our stats were very middle of the road.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Just for the rest of being a fighter, you get ability score improvement at 6th, 8th, 12th, 14th, 16th, and 19th.
If you do not have a 20 in whatever you need for your archetype,
Right.
you have done something wrong.
Yeah. There are plenty of ability score improvements for this class.
Right. At level 5, you get an extra attack. This is where you attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action. That's always really nice. The number of attacks increases to 3 when you reach 11. So you can do 3 attacks per action.
So an action surge would get you 6 attacks.
Right. And at level 20, it changes to 4.
So using your, if we pick Samurai, using that with the extra attacks, I have advantage. No, I don't want advantage. I'm now going to attack technically 9 times in a single turn. I'm going to hit, use my thing to hit for 5, action surge, hit for 4 more. I've now hit. If you don't kill something in 9 hits, you are fighting something you probably shouldn't be fighting.
Especially at level 20.
Right?
At level 9, you become Indomitable.
Indomitable.
This is where you can reroll a saving throw that you fail. That's always nice. If you do so, you must take the new roll, though. That you don't get to I like the first one better.
Boy, I wish I had that.
Yeah. You can't use this feature until after a long rest.
And you can use it twice at 13th, 3 times at 17th.
Right. And of course, at 11, we spoke about it. It's 11. At
Pretty much
11th,
after
you get
this,
3.
you're either getting a martial boost. Like every level, you get something. You're either getting a martial boost, you're getting extra attack, you're getting Indomitable, you're getting an ability score improvement, you're getting more action surges. So literally every level as fighter, you're getting something.
Right, which is nice because there's times where you've played where I know I have at least, when you play other classes, you hit a level and it's like nothing happened.
And you're until 16 now.
And you're like, oh, that sucks. So those are, again, some of them we did gloss over really quickly.
Because there's so much. We would spend like an hour and a half going into each thing, explaining what it does, how it works in the game.
And when you go into it, there's going to be other books and other unofficial.
It's called Unearthed Arcana. It's unofficial content.
Or more homebrewy stuff, where there's other ones. So you can definitely look into those, but we went with kind of like the straight up official main guidelines.
If you want, we can do a whole episode on Unearthed Arcana and cool homebrew things. Just let us know. Slide that DM to the DM.
So we're gonna go ahead and continue on with Con.
Break it down for us.
All right, so for Con, like I said, we got very middle of the road stats, but overall we wound up with an 18th strength, 14th dex, 15 con, 11 intelligence, 11 wisdom, and 13 charisma.
Which is pretty good. For a fighter, we're oddly charismatic.
And then for his background, I think as a champion, might make sense to stick him as a gladiator.
Yes.
Makes sense.
He's the champion of the
gladiators
local coliseum.
Which gives you skill proficiencies in acrobatics and performance.
Which is great.
As well as tool proficiencies with the disguise kit. And you get to pick a musical instrument. I chose drum.
The war drum.
So if you want to go on ahead and pull a d8, we'll roll our traits.
All right, let's diggity do this. I got a 3.
I'm a hopeless romantic, always searching for that special song.
Oh,
that's fine. He's always searching the stands.
Is she here? And then also 4.
Nobody stays angry at me or around me for long, since I can diffuse almost any amount of tension.
With my blades.
Alright, so then pick up a d6.
3.
Creativity. The world is in need of new ideas and bold action.
You're hoping that will give you love.
With my blades.
Bonds.
2.
Someone stole my precious instrument, and someday I'll get it back.
My drum! You've had it for so long.
Good old Drummy the drum.
And then flaw. 6.
Despite my best efforts, I am unreliable to my friends.
Oh, that's so
Because I
sad.
missed my drum.
I mean, this is an interesting gladiator. I guess he has friends outside of the arena, but when they fight with him in the arena, they're like, Khan's fighting with us. He's probably gonna take all the glory for himself. We can't help him help us.
Now, for the equipment, this is where you can kind of play around a little bit. Now, because you're proficient with all armor, shields, and the good majority of weapons, the world is your oyster as far
You can
as
have a
starting
trident.
equipment.
You can have a net.
So we either get chainmail or leather armor, longbow, and 20 arrows. But we're not a very dex.
I
would say
We're a
chainmail.
great weapon fighting here. We're gonna want the chain.
Go chainmail.
Right, we'll do chainmail.
We get a martial weapon and a shield, or 2 martial weapons.
Martial weapons.
I'm
Great
going to
weapons.
say 2 martial weapons because we're going to be
Yeah, exactly.
two-handed.
Martial weapons because we don't care about shields.
Right.
Defense. My defense is kicking your ass.
I think I kind of like the trident idea.
Yeah.
So let's
You're
give
thinking
us
of like classic
give us
gladiators.
a little bit of range with the
You
trident.
can also throw it.
Yeah.
And then how about a great sword?
Sure.
All right.
A long sword if we want. A
We
great
get
sword.
a light crossbow and 20 bolts, or 2 hand axes.
2 hand axes.
2 hand axes.
I literally decked to the nines here.
A dungeoneer's pack or an explorer's pack.
Explorer.
Yeah.
Going from Coliseum to Coliseum.
And then for the gladiator starting equipment, we get either an inexpensive but unusual weapon or a musical instrument.
Unusual
Well, we
weapon.
lost our musical instrument, so it has to be. It has to be.
Let's see. I think for the unusual weapon,
Net.
That's net and try. That's pretty classic.
net.
That's everything. That's
All
not.
right. We'll go
So now we have the net to throw on somebody and then stab them.
we also get a love letter, a lock of hair, or a trinket.
love letter. We're hoping we can find her.
It just says secret admirer.
Esmeralda or whatever your name is. I've named you Esmeralda.
The
because-
gypsy has got my heart.
Oh God, no.
I'll
Gypsies.
burn down
No,
all
no,
of
no,
Paris.
no,
Gypsies, they'll get you every
Nope,
time.
nope, we're not that. That's a cleric.
It's a lawful evil cleric.
Frollo the cleric.
God, nope, I hate
So
that
we're looking at Khan, and you know he's looking not too bad.
Have we equipped his stuff yet?
Yes, I have a
now.
quick.
So let's look at those. We didn't want the bard. I mean, battle is a thing for bards, but the one we picked didn't really have much to do with battle, so we didn't really look at what he can do.
So because his dex is not the greatest, his AC is 16.
That's still pretty good.
With
Level
chain
5.
It's still not awful.
You can have better armor later.
His
Yeah.
hit with his weapons is a +7,
Ugh.
and he's rolling about 1d6 +4 worth of damage, or 2d6 +4 with his great sword.
Because he's two-handing it.
Right, if he's two-handing it. Let me see. What's your abilities like, buddy? You've got the athletics with a +7. Everything else is a little low. Your acrobatics is +5. Your intimidation's +4. Performance +4.
Hey.
Right, a lot of this is again at level
Yeah.
5. We're talking about a character that's fairly early in its career.
Not only that, but fighters are for this kind of fighter, you're not going to be great at a lot of things.
Right.
Your kind of job is that you
Hit
are
it.
going to hit things.
You got one job, and if you fail at that job, the party needs to sit you down and go, "Hey, it's not you.
It's you.
It's
you.
how well you do."
So that's our fighter. That's Khan, and he is ready to go.
So we talked about, like, as a fighter, I mean, you have your one job. With some other classes, I don't like saying this, but as, like, a DM, other classes you can be a little more creative with it. There are some ways to be creative as a fighter, like the Arcane Archer, the Eldritch Knight. They gave the archetypes a little bit of creativity, like the Samurai.
Right.
But if you're trying to just battle master it or champion it, you are kind of sticking yourself to, you can be intimidating and frightful, and you can do that, or you can be like outside of combat. You're like, oh, I really don't want to fight. I really fight, and then in combat you fake it, but your role isn't as versatile as like a monk can be with being like stealthy and
Right.
bouncing around.
Right. It's one of those things where a fighter is a fighter.
You want to hit
Is-
either at range, finesse, or with strength.
You have a purpose, and it's your name.
It's literally your
Yeah,
job.
leave the talking to like the party's like
Bard
charisma heavy,
and
like their
rogue.
bard or their sorcerer. You know,
And some
you
groups
just
the barbarian.
you just sit there and look pretty.
I mean, you don't be ashamed that you don't. You can still bring things out of combat. Don't be ashamed, like, oh, I don't have that good a stance. It's all about roleplay. It's all about getting in there.
Yes, and that should be something that you really emphasize. I know we've kind of said that being a fighter can pretty much tie you down to being one thing, but that's not always the case.
Yeah,
Again,
That's your mechanical role is one thing.
right, and what you do with it makes all the difference.
I think a great example though is actually
Is
with our
Soren.
campaign.
Right,
because
with my
Soren-
barbarian,
yeah.
despite the fact that I'm a barbarian with low charisma, I am still technically the face of the group because I do the talking.
Everyone's so not good at it.
Right. Whereas even my rogue, who has I think the highest charisma of the group, I'm typically the least liked character from our NPCs.
Right.
So
It all
Watch our
comes down
stream,
to
you'll
the,
find out why.
it all comes everything comes down to how you play a character.
Right.
If you play a fighter to be exactly what you've made, it's going to act just like that. But if you play the character that you've made to what you want it to be, that changes everything. Even if you don't do it well. Let's say you've built a terrific fighter that is supposed to be a up-close fighter, but for some reason you play it as an archer, you could just have just as much fun. Like, I can't hit anyone with my darn arrows. And it's like,
And then, like, get close to them. When the enemy comes close to you, you go,
I also think it's worth mentioning, and this isn't really something that we've talked about with the other classes, but I think it can be applicable to the other classes. Just because you're not playing like a class that has like a worshipping aspect, there are other things you can do, like if you want to give your fighter like, you know, his gods like Pelor or his gods like, you know,
Ares.
or something, you know, he can always add that into his fighting, especially if something like a gladiator champion or something, you know, maybe he prays to the war god Ares before he goes in, and maybe Ares will be like, yeah, all right, I see you down there.
right, this is
You
something...
get your war on, kid.
Respect.
Right, and this is definitely one of those things where you could build a character that could have just as easily been like an NPC in someone's campaign. Where let's say that you're built a fighter. He's a battle master fighter. He can even be high level, but he's a retired knight or a retired
Right.
military person. So he doesn't like to fight. He does everything he can to actively avoid it. Where he sits in the back of the group and he doesn't do a darn
He's
thing.
seen the harshness of war, and he's seen the brutal reality.
Right, and to the point where the rest of the group is like, dude, are you going to help us? And then, like, one day he does, and he just destroys someone because that's what he's built to do.
And then every time they get in combat, he's like, oh man, that old
old
cuff
yeah.
is just kicking in. Oh
And
boy.
so it's definitely one of those things. It really comes down to how you play a fighter. It is, and it's the most. You know, it's one of those things where it's the well-rounded, generic, quote-unquote character. Again, when I say something like generic or stereotype, I'm not saying it like a bad thing. It's just what it's kind of known for in the in the community.
Yeah.
But everything comes down to how you play it. You could be a barbarian that's charismatic despite the fact that you don't have the stats to back it up because of how you play it. You could be a fighter who doesn't fight unless absolutely necessary. You can have a bard who isn't outgoing and everything. He's much more of the secretive kind of like, I'm really good at playing music, but I play it for myself in my room and no one can ever know. And then sells his mixtapes out of the trunk of his car.
So, that got real fast. So just have fun. That's what we're trying to say. Have fun,
Right.
make it you.
So even when you come across something like this, where people are like, you're a fighter, you're meant to do this,
Fight.
you fight. You can very well, depending on how you play and the character you come around,
Right.
change everything. And I'm really emphasizing this for that reason of being a fighter is usually stereotyped. It's, again, like we said, human fighter is the most statistically played character in D&D.
Yeah.
And
For
to
many reasons.
to the point where there's people like me who actively avoids making a fighter and making a human because I'm trying to avoid that. And again, that's personally on me. I want to push myself to do everything else that's out there, because with stuff like D&D, there's so many options to do things.
You know, it'd be hilarious. You do all these things, then you play a human fighter, and you're like, I am an idiot. I should have played this all along.
There's a lot of reasons, you know, and I think a good, like, sort of seductive aspect of the fighter is I think it is one of the easier classes to start out in.
And that's absolutely true. That's why I think a lot of people would gravitate when you have, especially human fighters, humans who get +1 to all of their ability scores, and fighters who are simplistic in that way, where you don't, even me who's been playing a barbarian for so long, I forget to rage sometimes, or I forget that my rages has effects. Fighter, you hit a thing. Did it die? No. Hit it again.
So there are many different ways to do it, and so talk to your DM.
First and foremost, a lot of it comes down to talking to your DM as to what options are available or the difficulty that you're looking at. Because, again, this is where you can start to see, the unofficial content, the homebrews, the...
Fighter has a lot of homebrew and it has unofficial content. It technically has 2 unofficial content with it right now, and one unofficial, 1 homebrew, but there's a bunch of homebrew for it. So
right. Even if you come up with one, I'm sure you can work with your DM to make the fighter that fits it. Let's say that you want to you're doing an evil campaign. You're like, I want a fighter who's a serial killer. There's probably some kind of thing that you can find where it's not quite roguey.
I immediately went to Mask of Many Faces, and it went real dark real fast. The literal translation. But we're not going to talk about that right now.
Right. But again, everything, and I know I'm really beating this, but really everything comes down to how you play it. So even though it's a fighter, it doesn't even have a fancy name like cleric or barbarian or something else where it's a fighter. You really just, it's what you make of it. Then that's the whole point of D&D. Your DM can have a story for you to play out exactly that. He's like, I got all of this for you. But then you as the player can play and change everything with a single decision, with a single dice roll. Everything comes down to how you do it. And I think Fighter is the prime example of how that is an opportunity for new players to come in and really experience it. Again, it's a fairly easy character to get into, but the most opportunity in a lot of ways to really kind of spread your wings and be like, how do I break out of this confined area of a character? And again, that's really
what it is, and I think that about wraps it up.
Right. So fighters, they fight.
They fight.
So again, take everything that we've said with you and do your research. Talk to your DM. Talk to our DM. Again, we're always open to questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, and the things of the sort. And
prayers if you want to give them to us.
Curses. I'll accept them.
I will push those off. So if you want to send a curse, let me know who you want to send it to other than me. And I'll push that curse off onto them.
All right, so the channel's being deleted by tomorrow. So yeah, we hope to see you guys next week, and we'll talk to you then. D10tion dismissed.